Hello everyone. Today we're gonna start our last chapter of this textbook. So we're on chapter number 12. First section is about circles and arcs. Okay, so let's start off with circles. Okay, when I say circle, we have a lot of vocab terms we really need to understand. So today's lesson is more like vocab terms and try understanding. So let's start off with circle and some related terms. So here's a circle. Let's say this is the center point and this is letter A. So this is how we label. So the symbol for this circle would be circle A. And now if I look at distance from this center point to any point on the circle, so this distance is called radius of this circle. This is called radius. Okay, now if I extend this line segment and put it on the other side. Now what I see is it's a line segment that goes from one side to all the way on the other side of the circle, and it passes through center point. So this entire line segment is called the diameter of the circle. Okay. Another one, let's say you have any two radius and there is an angle in between. So what do we call that angle? So this angle is called central angle. And there's one more. And what is that? So let's say if I ask you to measure a segment on this circle that goes from here to here. What is that piece? What do we call that? What's the name or what's the vocab term for that? So that's called an arc of the circle. So basically an arc is a part of circumference of the circle. Or it's basically a part of the outer distance of the circle. So that's called an arc. Okay, we have a few other terms for arcs. So let's talk about arcs. So total we have three different types of arcs. So we have minor arcs, we have major arcs, and the last one is semicircle. Semicircle arcs. Okay, so if I say minor arc, whenever the distance on the circle is less than 180 degrees. So whenever that line segment or the segment on the circumference is less than 180 degrees or less than half of the circle, it makes minor arc on the circle. Major arc obviously is something bigger than 180 degrees, or if it's something bigger than half of the circle, it's major arc. And the last one is semicircle, which is exactly equal to 180 degree, means half of the circle. Okay, how do we name each arc? Whenever it comes to minor arc, so we just use two letters or two alphabets. So in order to name minor arc, we need to use two letters. Basically, those two letters going to be endpoints on the circle, like from what letter you start and what letter you stop. So endpoints on the circumference, okay? For major and semicircle, we have to have three. We use three letters. So we have to have three letters. Again, those how do we name it? Basically, what you need is you just need the endpoints on the circle. Now I'm going to show you an example on like how to label each arc. So let me see if I can bring in a picture here. So let's say I have a picture here in this circle. Okay, here you go. So let's say on this circle, if I have to label major, minor, and semicircle, how would we do that? So let's start off with semicircle. When I say semicircle, means I'm looking at three letters, so where you can have half of the circle on the circumference. So first example, think about this. If I start from this end point and if I go all the way to this point D. So that makes half of the circle. So that would be my semicircle arc. How do we name this? So this is what we do. So you have to have 3 letters. So first would be the point you start off with. Second would be the letter you end at or stop at. And in between, you can pick any letter. If you have multiple letters, just pick any letter. That would be fine. So like this one, here I could label this as C, E, and D, and this is another thing you need to put it on the arc or the name. So that's just a symbol for arc length or arc measurement. So do we have any other arc measurement where we can actually get half of the circle covered? Yeah, we do. So let's just look at, if I go other way around, if I go from C and stop at D, that's another half circle, but what would be the name? So I started off with C, I still stopped at D, but what's the other letter you see in between? I see A. So that's the reason this arc is different than the first one, because I see first one goes, it's clockwise, and it's clockwise, and other one is counterclockwise. That's how we label semicircle. Now let me show you minor and major. Let me erase this. And major and minor. Okay. Okay, so let's start off with minor. If I have minor arc, now this is where you have to look at a part of the circumference that's less than 180. All right, so again, we just need, for this one, for minor, you have to have 2 letters. So if I start from C and stop at E, isn't it this section is less than half of the circle? So it means that's going to be my first example on minor arc. So CE could be first example. Now if I look at DE, that could, or ED, the same thing. DE could be another example. DA, so that could be another one. AC or CA could be another one. So these 4 names, or these 4 minor arcs I see on this circle here. Okay, now let's talk about major one. So let me erase it first. For the major one, now the arc has to be bigger than 180. So let's look that up. So for the major one, okay, now you have to have 3 letters to name that. So if I start from C, and if I stop at D, that's going to be exactly half of the circle, which is not major arc. It has to be bigger than that. So I would start from C, and if I go all the way to point A, that's going to be bigger than 180, which makes major arc. So how do we label that? So first letter is the letter you start off with, the last one where you stop. So in between, you can pick any letter. So you can pick D or E, doesn't matter. So let me just say it's D, and here's the symbol. Do we have any other? I could do A, and I could start from A and then stop at D again, okay? But what's the, I can start from A and then stop at D. So what's the letter in between? I could do C, and here you go. Do we have any other option? So let's look that up. How about if I start from E, stop at C? Okay, as long as that section is bigger than 180, that makes major arc, okay? And then in between E and C, let's just say D. Okay, here's the difference. I can go E to C from this side as well, but do you think that would be major arc? Do we have any third letter in between? So that's not minor arc. So basically, in order to find the major arc, you have to have that section bigger than 180. Otherwise, it would not be major arc. Okay, so that was how to name each one. So that's pretty much all about this. Now let's move on to my next example. So this next example is about finding arc measure. How do we measure any arc? So basically what happens is any arc measurement, let's say any arc measurement, I'm just going to name that, or this is the symbol we put M for the arc measurement. For arc measure, it's always going to be equal to this corresponding central angle. So that's equal to corresponding central angle. Okay, So let me show you an example. I hope that would make more sense to you. So let's say there's a circle here. So from here to here, that's the diameter of the circle, circle O. This one, this is D, this is C, this is A. I have B. This central angle is 32 degrees. And this arc length, I already know it's 58 degrees. So we need to figure out a few measurements here. So I'm just going to list those. So BC is one of the things we need to solve for. BD, the second one. ABC and AB. All right. So first thing, whatever you see with 2 letters, that's going to be less than 180. Whatever with 3 letters, that's definitely either it's going to be equal to 180 or it's going to be higher than 180. So keep in mind. BC, let's label that. Let me pick a different color. So when I say BC, I'm looking at this section, this arc length here. So measure of this arc length is equal to its corresponding central angle, which is 32 degrees. So I already know this is going to be equal to 32 degrees. I'm done. BD. So BD, let's pick a different color. So for BD, it starts from here and it stops here. Okay, I have to have central angle or arc length, either or we can work backwards, depends. So if this is 32, I already know. Do we know any of this part here, either the arc or the central angle? No, we do know arc length, so isn't it they both should be the same? So if the arc length is 58, I know this corresponding central angle would be the same. So what's the entire length? Starting from B, stops at D. So if I add these two angles, that's going to be the entire arc length. So 32 added to 58 degrees, and that becomes 90 degrees. All right. Next one, ABC. So start from here, B and C. Since it's exactly correspond to the diameter of this circle, so you know it's half of the circle, so that's definitely going to be equal to 180 degrees. The last one, AB. Let's pick a different color. When I say AB, so I'm looking at this piece here. Okay, as I already know, up to this part, it's half of the circle, which is equal to 180 degrees. And I already know this piece out of this whole thing is 32 degrees. Can we figure out the other part? So I would just do 180 minus 32. It would give me 148 degrees, which is going to be measure of this arc here. So that's how we deal with these type of problems. So pretty much, as long as you know how to name each one and how to find their central angle, that's all it's about. And yeah, thank you for watching. And if you have any question, comment, and I'll answer that. Thank you. Bye-bye.